2, 3. Welcome back to the Action Jack-0ffs podcast, the show where we talk about the very best and favorite action movies of all time. Today, alongside Lincoln and myself, we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Colin.
How you doing?
Yeah, here we go.
It's like a reward.
Yeah, it's actually nice to get to the point where we actually have somebody on the podcast. We tried to do this last episode and it didn't really work out, but
yeah, this guy actually showed up.
Yeah.
Well, when Garrett brought up the movie we'd be talking about, I of course I'm in. That's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And
I knew it.
I think it always will be.
Yeah. So the movie we're doing this week is Django Unchained, directed by Quentin Tarantino, starring Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz. And I came up with this movie. So I was the one that kind of like picked this out, and I was like, we got to do this movie. And in the spirit of having guests, and you're our first guest that we've had on, so I was like, in the spirit of having guests, I want to be able to like have something that's in fitting with our theme, and that kind of, like you said, goes with something that you're like really familiar with. And when it came to, and of course, eventually I was like, we got to do a Quentin Tarantino movie. And it was either going to be this or it was going to be the Kill Bill movies. And I didn't know how that was going to work out. I didn't know how we were going to do, the two movies.
Well, anybody that knows me knows that Tarantino is my favorite director, and Django is my favorite of his movies. So really, any of those, I'd say the Kill Bills I could probably talk about the least.
Really?
Those and maybe Hateful Eight. They're not like my favorite of Tarantino's, but Django especially I've seen more than any of his movies, and it never gets old. I love it. Another big one, I'm also big on Inglourious Bastards. That's probably my next biggest.
That one's
as far as favorites for him.
I think that one's on my lower rung of movies of his.
Really?
Of the ones that I've seen the most of, yeah.
Oh, man, that's
this one is the lowest of his movies.
This one?
Which Django is?
Django is, yeah.
That's crazy.
Like the one,
the
one you've not seen.
I've probably seen it. I probably have seen this one the most out of all of them. It's probably why I don't like it as much as I like some of the other ones.
Interesting.
There was a big stint in high school where me and my friends, back before I met you, Garrett, when I was deep in the drugs, and we would I would wake up in the intro, like the DVD intro menu would be playing. It would just be Django. Have you ever?
That's a great thing to wake up to, right there.
It's like burned into my memory for like a whole summer. Like we watch this shit like every day.
Wake up right.
Yeah,
with the Django theme song.
That's the way to do it.
It was this one, Inglourious Bastards, that I've probably seen the most. I like Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs the most. I feel like.
Reservoir Dogs. That's a good one. That's up there for me.
But
that's
Jackie
probably
Brown?
my number 3. Jackie Brown is.
Jackie Brown. That's like that's a well-written stage play. That's like real art right there.
I think
I'll be honest.
Set pieces in that one.
This is probably going to ruin my Tarantino credibility. I have not even been able to sit through Jackie Brown all the way. Every time I watch it, I fall asleep. I fall asleep.
The first time I watched it, I was like, "That's a horrendous piece of shit." The second time I watched it, though, I really sat down and was like, "Okay, so this is what we're doing and whatnot." And it's a really, really well written film that's a lot more about performances than anything. Now, when I say this is my least favorite of them, I'm not saying it's bad. It's amazing. It's a great film, but that's more of just how many times I've seen all of his movies and what at this point I'm trying to get out of them.
Yeah.
Is like Reservoir Dogs, I feel like that's probably my favorite of his, and then it's like Jackie Brown, Inglourious Bastards, and so on and so forth.
Wow. I'm surprised not one of you guys has mentioned Pulp Fiction yet.
That's actually probably my second least favorite.
The reason basic, but Pulp Fiction is king.
See, that's the
You
one.
gotta have
Like
Bruce Willis.
when I
It's
was,
a great movie.
that's anytime we're talking about Tarantino movies and we say one is my least favorite or anything, doesn't mean I don't like it.
Oh,
Not even
yeah.
close. I love it.
Because they're,
Right.
they're the best.
It's just that Pulp Fiction was one of those movies that was recommended to me so many times, and then whenever I finally watched it, I wasn't that big of a fan of it. Like, I actually didn't like Pulp Fiction the first time I watched it. I was like, I don't get the hype.
Okay.
Obviously, like it, quite a few of Tarantino movies were like that for me. Like, whenever I first watched them, I didn't really like Inglourious Basterds the first time I watched it. I didn't really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They kind of, almost all of them except for Django, took me a second viewing to be like, oh, I get this. I like this. With the exception of Django, and I would say Reservoir Dogs, I liked on the first viewing. Um, but yeah, like, well, I think Django was the first Tarantino movie I ever watched. I didn't know it was Tarantino at the time. I was like 12, and then first time I watched Pulp Fiction, I was probably about 16,
Okay.
and I hadn't seen. And Django and Pulp Fiction are so different. They're not.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even have a similar
Wild,
tone, not a similar vibe. They're like, you know, Pulp Fiction is not in chronological order. It's all out of order and everything. Whereas Django is one, you know,
One
it's
continuous
in
story.
yeah,
It has cutaways, but other than that, it comes back
yeah.
to the original plot.
Yeah.
Well, and you always know when it's a flashback because it has that weird film over it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's very in keeping with like a traditional Western story in terms of, not in terms of like the plot itself, but in terms of just like the way it plays out, the way it kind of progresses forward.
Yeah,
Django, it does have a very smooth plot compared to something like Pulp Fiction, where I think other than something like Jackie Brown, I don't think Tarantino's done anything else quite like Pulp Fiction.
Um,
I mean, Death Proof, but Death Proof's kind of it's a one-off.
Death Proof's not even out of order though. Death Proof
You know,
is in
they,
order.
yeah, Jackie Brown's kind of out of order in some parts of it.
Only
Like, towards the end.
only insofar as it cuts back to significant plot points that happened later on in the movie, but from like a different perspective or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pulp Fiction kind of like stands on its own as like just this completely unique film. I think that's why I gravitate towards it so much. But when I was rewatching Django this go around, I was like, man, this is I can understand like why this is Colin's favorite and why this is something that
Yeah.
I find myself coming back to every so often. Just like in the pantheon of Tarantino movies, there's usually a handful I always come back to. It's this movie, Pulp Fiction, and The Hateful Eight
Mhm.
is the ones I always come back to, and the ones that I can compare this movie to the most. And I think that's something that is interesting to do with these types of movies, especially with his movies, is you can compare them to something like Kill Bill and Hateful Eight, and there's something to like draw from both of them. And I found that really interesting, like just certain elements of Kill Bill and certain like staging elements make their way into Django. Like for instance, like whenever the bride kills the last of the Crazy 88, and she's like on top of that balcony, and she's like talking down to everybody else. That scene is somewhat mimicked whenever Django is on the balcony in the lobby of Candyland. Whenever everybody comes back from the funeral, something similar.
Well, I think with that, I mean, almost all of Tarantino's movies have a pretty big finish. I mean, Inglourious Bastards has a big finish with the theater being burnt down. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Manson gang breaks into the house, and
yeah,
they all get.
Which you can attribute to fire as well, with Leo torching that one guy.
Yeah,
and then this movie ends in fire as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the standoff in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all have that big finale, which is part of the reason I love uh, just all of Tarantino's movies. We could go on and on about all the different Tarantino movies.
But to reference this movie, or to bring it back to this movie, just something else I thought was really interesting, that I thought was kind of fascinating. If you look at, and this is something Hateful Eight takes from this movie, spoilers, obviously, for so many movies here, but in Hateful Eight, Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins die on the floor together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in this movie, Django, at the end of the movie, Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins die on the floor together. And I thought that was a really interesting. That's a really interesting connection right there. Also, just find that I think it's Kill Bill, where David Carradine's character Bill is talking about like how painful it is when someone gets kneecapped, like to just take a bullet to the knee. And then, of course, Samuel Jackson's character in this movie takes 2 to the knee.
Yeah.
So
incredible.
Just nice little touches right there that I like. I like seeing the attention to detail between his different works.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of little crossovers in a lot of his movies, where like little details will kind of slip into the next movie. But because I think his original plan was to have Vincent Vega in Pulp Fiction be Mr. Blonde's brother.
Okay.
So it's going to be Vincent Vega and I think Vic is his name. Is Mr. Blonde's name?
Yeah, Vic
Vega.
And Vincent.
So yeah, he's got a lot of those little tie-ins.
Yeah. Well, to that spirit, there's a really great cameo in this movie. You guys are familiar with, I assume, the original movie that this is based on.
Yes.
Right? I haven't seen it.
The real Django. Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
What's that?
Do what?
I said the actual Django pops up in the movie.
Yeah,
that's what.
Franco Nero does make a cameo in the movie as the guy playing Amerigo Vespucci, who is also in the debut scene with Calvin Candy, Leo DiCaprio, where they're fighting the 2 guys. He is that other guy, and then obviously he has that exchange with Django where we learn that the D is silent. So
yeah,
Incredible.
Great little touch up right there.
Yeah.
Another little tie-in is that the grave that the bride gets thrown in is a relative of Dr. Schultz's. I know this because it's my own last name.
Very interesting. Nice little touch right there. I love that stuff. I also love...
Yeah, there's...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
No, I was just going to say, I love... There's like the... Speaking of details, details in this movie that I really like are just sort of like the parallels between someone like Dr. Schultz and Calvin Candy. Just the fact that he's all about candy. He loves sweets. He harvests sugar on his farm, on his plantation, and his teeth are just rotten to the core. And Dr. Schultz obviously is a dentist,
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Yes.
Then he wipes out Calvin Candy at the end of the movie, kind of showcasing like he's the dentist taking out the rotting person in that case.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about that movie, and I've always said it, is that they kind of give the exact plot points to the movie whenever Dr. Schultz is referencing the German story, tale, or whatever it is, how Siegfried is the one that saves Broomhilda, and he scales the mountain. He rides all those miles to Candyland. He slays the fire-breathing dragon, which is, that could be all the gunfire, that could be Calvin Candy himself.
Could be Steven.
Could be Steven, yep. He does all these things to save Broomhilda. And yeah, I've always really liked that it kind of references itself. I guess that's a little bit meta, But I do think that that's meta done well.
Yeah.
Um,
It's good foreshadowing.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Like with the scene where Dr. Schultz is talking to Django right before all that shit goes down with Candy and Steven
Hmm.
and everybody else. When he's like, I don't want. It was on their ride to Candyland, I believe, or when they had just gotten there, and Dr. Schultz said, "I don't want to die in Chickasaw County. I don't want the place where I die to be in
Hmm.
Chickasaw County, Mississippi." And of course, like
City.
that's
Hmm.
where he ends up perishing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to talk about because this is one of the biggest sticking points with the movie for me. That historically speaking, Christoph Waltz, told Tarantino when he took the role that he wanted the role to be pure. He wanted it. He wanted his
Hmm.
character to not be evil or negative in any way. But I honestly
Hmm.
think that there is a sort of caveat to that takes place during his final moments in the movie that kind of turns it on its head a little bit and kind of changes, in my opinion, the perspective of that character. Now, the character can be flawed, but I feel like this was a somewhat dumb shit move for him to do, to put it bluntly.
Hmm.
Like, what do you guys think about how Dr. Schultz is basically the reason that Django and Broomhilda get captured again and almost like killed again? Because I mean, like when he kills Cal and Candy, he basically put them in a position where they were going to get fucked.
Hmm.
And
Well,
I know he turns around and he's like, I couldn't resist and all that stuff, but like if he had just shook his hand and they left, that could have been the end of it.
well, that could be a few things. Tarantino could have written himself in the corner, but uh, we've also discussed similarities between different writings of his movies, and one thing that he does a lot is he will leave it up to interpretation to the viewer. I like to think that Candy was going to somehow pull a fast one on him,
Right.
and he just beat him to the punch.
Could be.
That has always kind of been my reasoning there. Because also, why would Candy? I mean, obviously, Candy's a narcissistic asshole, and he's very. He's got to win in this situation. He's got to feel like he won, so he's making Schultz shake his hand. But other than that reason of like, he's got to feel like the winner. Why would he make Schultz shake his hand? I mean, you won. You got $15,000 or $12,000 from him for somebody who isn't worth $12,000 in your eyes. So why take that extra step? And so I like to think that he had something up his sleeve
As if
against Schultz right there.
like he was never actually going to let them leave the plantation or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. I also enjoy thinking that Tarantino wrote the two major characters in two different ways. He writes Django as sort of this like traditional hero who in many ways, like you said, reflects the story of Siegfried and Brunhilde, and he is that traditional tall tale legendary hero that goes on this hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Schultz is a more Shakespearean character.
Mm-hmm.
In that he is like a tragic icon. He's like a tragic hero. He's got all these great things going for him. He's incredibly gifted at the talents that he's gifted in, but he's got a tragic flaw. And his tragic flaw is likely his pride. The idea that he can't stand that he lost to someone like Calvin Candy. The idea that he can't stand, or maybe it's his sense of justice. Like he can't stand living in a world where Calvin Candy, is getting away with it scot-free. So that's why he has to kill him. Or something along those lines.
So
I like that perspective.
We all have very different interpretations.
Yeah. I mean, what do you have?
There's the first part that there's like something that Quentin had said once where he's like, I create these characters and then they like have their own like a chord in their own story that they're going to play out that I'm no longer responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like that aspect of how he said that he writes some characters, but I also think that it's more like the Joseph Campbell, I believe, like with like the myths and stories and stuff. Because we talked earlier about how the Brunhilde mythos and whatnot is mentioned earlier. Did Nick Schultz realize that he's the Obi-Wan?
Did he
And
realize
all
he was
that
the old
he's
man in the story?
that he was the character that had to be sacrificed for them to live their lives?
That is a
Yeah.
good
Or was it
question. Because I think Dr. Schultz at some point, I think he realized that he had had this profound effect on Django on their ride to Tennessee, or I'm sorry, to Memphis. Oh, God damn it. Mississippi, excuse me.
Sounded out.
I know. On his way to Mississippi, I think he had this profound realization on the effect he's had on Django whenever he's scolding Django for overcommitting to his role as the expert. And Django's the one that's like, you were the one that taught me. I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, you're the one that taught me how to gun a man down in front of his own son.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's when the look on Dr. Schultz's face kind of shows me that he's like, oh shit, like I've done something to Django. I've changed Django. Because Django's no longer the man he was when he started his journey. He was the type of guy that could kill people and, be fine with it. But there was a part of him that, I don't want to say died, but there was definitely a part of him that kind of hardened or changed whenever he started working with Dr. Schultz. And I think that's one of two things that makes Dr. Schultz not the infallible character that he initially comes off as, because he says it himself. His role is to make money off of corpses, kill people and make money off of them, and that does something to somebody. And Django kind of evolving into that role, I think, was part of his journey, and Dr. Schultz, played that role in the journey, as you said, the Obi-Wan character, the Yoda character. And I just think that's great writing. I mean, if we're talking about anything.
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, I think now's a good time to go into some favorite scenes that we've got. I'll start with you, Colin. Just tell us some of your favorite scenes, and we'll just kind of like go from there.
Oh God. Oh, where do I go?
Where do you begin?
Oh man. I mean, honestly, one of my favorites. Just because, I mean, you start the movie, you get through the intro, and you hear those first words by one of the Speck brothers. I love that opening scene so much.
I was gonna say,
yeah, that whole opening scene.
Also,
yeah. Because I mean, the moment the first guy speaks, I mean, you're like, all right, we're in it.
Yep.
Because his opening words, "Who's that stumbling around in the dark? State your business or prepare to get winged." And it's, and then Schultz comes out, "Calm yourself, gentlemen." And I mean, just that whole scene, and I mean, and it builds and it builds and it builds. Finally, to have the Speck brothers, one of them gets shot, the other one's horses get shot. And then that one ends up getting shot later. That whole opening scene is so fantastic to me. That one, the final scene, and that I would say the next one that really stands out to me is kind of like the climax of the movie, when they are sitting discussing everything at the dinner table, and it's it's like a damn near half of the movie. It's like 40 minutes of them sitting at the table talking. Steven figures them out. They go into the library, and then they come back, and this is the part where I start like sitting on the edge of my chair, and it's the whenever they have been figured out, but they don't know that they've been figured out yet. And he brings the skull in and he cuts into it, and he starts going through his ramble about the dimples on the skull and phrenology and all that. And
which, by the way, is since then defunct pseudoscience, which I thought was a clever touch.
Oh yeah, that's a very old psychology study by Freud, I think.
Oh, I couldn't remember, but yeah.
I believe it was Freud that did all the dimples. Yeah, and then, he slams the hammer, and Leo smashes open his hand and rubs it all over Kerry Washington's face, and just that whole scene is so intense and so good. Anytime I get to that scene, I mean, I'm hooked, and my eyes are glued. Like, you couldn't pry my eyes off of that scene.
Yeah.
So really, that whole sequence is, in my opinion, one of the best scenes ever made. Quentin does such a good job of it starting at this low, just building and building. It's like a symphony of a movie with all of its, because then it peaks where all the fighting is going on, and then it kind of drops back down, and then it builds back up, and then it drops back down. So I'd say opening scene and the big dinner scene are probably my two favorites. And then kind of my runner-ups are the final scene where he's blowing up the house, and when he has the flashback whenever he's about to kill Roger Ellis and Big John.
Yeah, great scenes. Were you? I can't remember what it was. This is sort of like an aside, and then I'll keep it going. But how do we feel about Christoph Waltz winning the Oscar for this movie?
Absolutely, 100% deserved.
Earned.
Yeah, earned through and through.
Yeah. I mean, based on the scenes he's in, he kills it.
He absolutely steals the show in most of the scenes that he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I concur. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Oh yeah.
What was that, Link?
Yeah, I mean.
So I kind of don't care about the movie once he's gone.
Yeah, there is a little part of me that whenever he dies, it's like, well, that might as well be the end of the story.
Because we lost some personality.
Yeah. Well, and they did make that character, the fact that Christoph Waltz asked Tarantino to write such a pure character, and for the most part, like you said, obviously he has his faults, but he is a very pure character to be a abolitionist, which is essentially what he is.
Yeah. Which is funny.
Back in those days,
he probably doesn't even realize that's what he's doing either. He's just doing what he thinks is the right thing to do.
I think to an extent he knows what he's doing, because he admits, he says, whenever he brings Django under his wing, he says, on one hand, I despise slavery.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I need your help, and if you're not in a position to refuse, all the better.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to do this, but I really need your help. I don't know if you'll go along with me if I don't force you to.
Yeah.
I need you to come with me.
Right.
We're going to do this. Once we do it, I'll set you free, and everything will be good.
Right. I mean, that's why I say whenever he's like an abolitionist by kind of like circumstance, because I mean, I look at it and I say to myself, like, he didn't even realize that black people during those times didn't really ride horses, because when they ride into town, I forget what town it was, but whenever they ride,
I think they were going into Chattanooga.
No, it was like it began with a D.
Yeah, baby.
But they rode into town, and it was right after he had freed Django, and he was like, "What are they all staring at?" And Django was like, "They've never seen a guy like me on a horse before."
Yeah.
So just little things like that. I'm like, he probably doesn't even realize the extent of what he's doing. Like, he probably doesn't even fully realize how much he means on a personal level to somebody like Django.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like you said, he almost doesn't even understand the plight that they're being put through. Because I mean, hell, when Django takes off his blanket at the beginning of the movie, he looks up at the lashes on his back, and it's almost like he's dumbfounded by it, like he's almost never seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever he sees the guy being ripped apart by dogs, I don't think, because it is kind of mentioned at one point in the movie that he's from Germany. They don't really have slavery in Germany.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of ties in with why he despises it, because whenever he moved to America, he hasn't, he hasn't really seen that. He hasn't dealt with that, and so he despises it because he hasn't been around it and he doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I'm trailing off. I forgot.
You're good.
What was the question?
No, it's good. It's good. I like the sort of parallel between Django and Dr. Schultz, where it's kind of like they both have moments where they kind of their worlds intertwine in different ways. Like how I mentioned earlier, Django is kind of uncomfortable killing a man in front of his son, but Dr. Schultz says, this is my world. I'm a bounty hunter. This is what we do. And then later on, Dr. Schultz is horrified to see a man getting eaten alive by dogs, but Django doesn't even flinch at it.
Yeah.
He even mentions to Calvin, he's like, he's just never seen a guy eaten by dogs before. So there's kind of this nice intertwining of their lives. They're interpersonally connected on such a level that I love the sequence towards the end of the movie where Django comes back to Candyland after he just left the LeQuint mining company parade or whatever it was, the bandwagon, and he finds Dr. Schultz lying dead in the corner, and he just goes up to him and kisses his hand and puts it on the back of Schultz's head, and he's just like, "Auf Wiedersehen." And I was like, oh man, chef's kiss. Like really one of the best character moments for Django in the whole movie. I really loved that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So Lincoln, go ahead and give us some of your favorite scenes in the movie.
But we went over the incredible opening scene where he shot Roscoe and he killed Ace. Just love it.
Yeah.
It's so quotable.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge fan of the Jonah Hill and the KKK where they all
in
the back.
Don Johnson, Jonah Hill.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's so good. And then there's make sure you get the sheriff and not the marshal.
Yeah.
That's
a great scene.
When there's that whole being like, we don't open till so and so and whatever, and then he turns around and sees Django in the bar, and it just hard whip zooms into his face, and he goes, "What? What's going on here?" And all the guys, all the guns on the rifles and stuff.
Great scenes. I love them.
Yeah, that's another incredible one. That's another one like that just never really gets old to me, because you learn. Like it sets up the movie. It sets up the tone for the movie. It sets up the story for the movie. It sets up everything. Because that's when Schultz explains to him what's going to be going on. That's when you get to kind of see how his bounty hunting operation works and how he does it. It seems like he always cheats the hangman. He's like, nope, let's go ahead and put him down. That way they're easier to carry back.
Yeah.
And
it's also great foreshadowing for his scene later in the movie whenever he uses his spring-loaded wrist gun on an unassuming character, and then he does it again with Calvin at the end of the movie. So just great foreshadowing. I think is just one of Tarantino's best things that he can do in a movie.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of forget about it.
Because it doesn't appear again until
Schultz even has that thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it does appear one other time. It appears when Django uses it.
Oh, yeah.
Against Big John.
Yeah.
And then it appears. But you've got such a big gap in between even the Big John scene and the pretty much the final scene in the movie that's like an hour and a half window right there.
Yeah.
Between those 2 points, so you kind of forget about it. You're like, oh, they used that. All right. And then like you move past it, and then you don't really think about it again, and so it sneaks back up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really love that.
Spectacularly.
I really love the scene where he's attacking the brothers, the three brothers, and I love, like Lincoln said, I love any scene with Don Johnson in it. I think is hilarious. He kills that role as the Tennessee plantation owner. That killed me.
You want I should treat him like white folks? No. It's
Didn't
not what
say that.
I did say that. And then they're talking about like some poor soul who's got like problems or something like that. And they're just like, treat him like that guy.
Yeah, you remember? Oh, what's the name of that? What's that name of the Peckerwood boy from town? His mama work with the glass, or no, he works with the glass. Mama works over at the lumberyard. Oh, you mean Jerry? That's the boy, Jerry. You know Jerry, don't you, sugar? Oh, that's just it, then. You just treat him like you would Jerry.
I love it. I love your encyclopedic knowledge on the quotes of the movie.
Oh, see, the quotes are like my favorite thing about the movie. I can quote damn near the whole movie. And it's such a quotable movie. Damn near any line that Schultz says. If Alexander Dupont had been there today, I wonder what he would have made of it. You doubt he'd approve, huh? Yes, his approval would be a dubious proposition at best. Soft-hearted Frenchie. Alexander Dumas is black.
Solid. Oh, dude.
Killed
that.
I love that line. Yeah, because he essentially is saying, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And you're a racist son of a bitch, and I hope you die. Yeah. Like, you ignorant asshole.
I mean, just absolutely wrecked him. And to get
I love that Candy just kind of sits there and mulls it over, almost like, dang, I like a black guy's book. What the fuck?
I almost think it's funny. I like to imagine that Calvin has not actually read The Three Musketeers. I like to think that he's such a pompous fuck that he's one of those people that like pretends that he's like read it.
Yeah.
So he just like, because he also likes to be called Monsieur Candy, but he doesn't actually speak French.
Yeah.
So he's got like this fascination with French culture, but he doesn't actually know anything about the culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know that Alexander Dumas is black. He doesn't speak French. To
give some credit where credit is due, Django has probably one of my favorite one-liners in the movie, where he pops in on those dudes at that doghouse, and he's like, "D'Artagnan, motherfuckers!" And just breaks it, and starts blasting.
I love that part. Every time that scene hits, I start cracking up because it's such a simple yet badass entrance. D'Artagnan, motherfuckers, and boom, 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 and it's just like, yep, all right.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, let's
give me just 1 second. I'm gonna grab a glass of water.
You're good.
I do believe you'll still be able to hear me, but just in case.
No, you're good. So yeah, great lines, great scenes, and now I kind of wanted to transition to, I guess, not necessarily transition, but because we've kind of been doing it this whole time, but I did want to transition to what I think are probably some of our favorite actors in the movie. Like, who gives, obviously Christoph Waltz, he won the Oscar, so he kind of gets that, but I find it interesting if we just, whoever is your favorite actor in the movie, who's your favorite character, and I'll start with Lincoln on this one.
I was going to say that I really enjoy Kerry Washington.
Oh, you've read my mind.
Who's just been in so many, like, in Fantastic Four.
That's where I recognized her from.
Yeah. Little Man, the Cars, like, she's just been in so many things, but I think it's definitely she's blind in Fantastic Four, right?
Yeah, she plays Alicia Masters, the blind lady.
That's what I was thinking. Where I just love it. And then like you're asking so much of her, and she has to be like so vulnerable, like in the even just the entrance scene of her getting like pulled out of the hot box and splashed with water and stuff, and
Yeah.
just and just what's his butt? Leonardo just putting blood on her face without asking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The scene, like real blood.
Well, I think it's that there's obviously like a cut between when he was on that monologue and he broke his skin, or he cut his hand, and I like to think, I would assume, I haven't read anything about this, but I assume that they bandaged him up and they kept in that he has a bloody hand, and he didn't actually rub real blood all over Kerry Washington's face.
You'd like to think so.
Yeah,
I think that Quentin's doing some weird shit.
No, yeah, it was Marv's in the chat, by the way, but Marv, it was all one.
Oh, he can show up now, can he?
It was all one scene, but there was a cut when they brought in Kerry Washington's character. So yeah, I know he cut his hand, but I don't believe his hand was. I don't believe it was his real blood when he actually wiped on her face, because there's a cut between his monologue, him cutting himself, and then there's a cut, and then he brings in Kerry Washington.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Either way, we're asking a lot of her. She's doing a great job.
yes,
She's kind of the central point of the movie. Like, if you don't believe that she's like this wonderful and worth all of this, then like the movie doesn't work.
yeah, I really liked how when Walton Goggins had the gun pointed at her, or he had the gun trained on her, and it was at the end of the movie when they had to give themselves up again. I really liked how she was like willing to sacrifice herself for Django. Django's willing to do all this stuff for her, and it was nice to see that she had a moment where she was like, yeah, I'm willing to die so that you can go free. Which speaks.
Well, to be fair, in that scene, she wouldn't, or he wouldn't be able to necessarily go free because
Well, yeah, but he would have had more of a fighting chance without having to worry about saving her or keeping her safe.
I don't know. He was out of ammo. he was backed into a corner. He would have been screwed, I think, either way.
I think we, the audience, know that. I don't think that was entirely something that everybody else knew. Nobody else knew he was out of ammo.
Yes, but us knowing that and him knowing that, because he knew he was out of ammo.
Yeah.
Because he looks at the gun and he drops it down. She doesn't know that. You're right, but he's like, I'm out of ammo. I'm in a corner. I can either keep us both alive by giving myself up and maybe have a chance of getting out of this, rather than me try to keep going and I'm probably going to die and she's definitely going to die.
Yeah. He made the right
and
call.
So, oh yeah. Yeah. But I think that it's not completely about Django. Because my take of that scene has always been that it's actually a little bit more selfish. Like, I don't want to say selfish. It's not, because it's not selfish of her to want to die. But what she's saying, it's more about her. It's like, give me up. Just let them kill me. It's going to be a whole hell of a lot better than what's going to happen if we both stay alive. They're going to torture me, or they're going to torture us. They're going to,
Like, she has this concept of how bad it's going to get for her, that she'd welcome death.
Yeah, that she's like, just give me up. Just kill me. Let them kill me.
Yeah.
Don't keep going, because this is only going to get worse. Or don't give up, because this is only going to be worse for us. Just let them kill me. Let them kill me. It's better this way. Kind of in that way. So yeah, not necessarily selfish, because I mean, it is better than the alternative. Dying is a hell of a lot better than what they ended up doing to her, because it's implied that after Django gets taken back to the LaQuint-Dickey gang, that she's getting like raped and that kind of thing.
Well, there was a cut scene from the script where she actually does get raped.
Yeah.
And,
yes, exactly. Well, and that's why I say that it's implied, because it's not in the movie. So, but yeah, I mean, they have that shot of like them throwing her back on her bed, and then you just kind of get that vibe of like. Well, and then whenever Django finally gets back into the house.
Yeah, but in that scene where they throw her on the bed, they immediately just leave the room.
I think it's implied that they
would have, or they were going to at some point.
I think it's implied that they just got done.
I have to rewatch the scene again, because I could have sworn they opened the door, brought her in, threw her on the bed, and then left.
That's what I'm saying. Is like maybe they I think it's implied that they had taken her somewhere else, did the deed, and now we're taking her back to that shack to just throw her back in.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I've always seen it.
I can see how you would interpret it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I always took it. Because then whenever Django finally does show up, she like tenses up, like, oh my god, not again.
Okay.
And then he's like, it's me, and then she like has that sigh of relief, because it's like, oh god, thank god they're not taking me in there again, almost in a way.
Okay. Yeah, I read it a little differently, where he comes in and she tensed up like that as her being afraid of them coming to do the things that in her head that they're going to do, or
yeah.
So like you read it as like they had done it. I had read it as they were going to do it or planning on doing it. Lincoln, what was your input on that scene?
I never really got the sense that it had happened, but I definitely could see that interpretation. I kind of more have seen it as Garrett had seen it, but it definitely just, like, her tensing up, they've been beating her, throwing her in hot boxes, like, that's just what her life has been at this point, so it just makes sense that she wouldn't feel safe after they took him away, and she thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Colin, what was one of your other favorite characters in the movie that's not Dr. Schultz?
So we can't pick Dr. Schultz? God damn it.
I mean, he already won the Oscar for it. He's gotten the recognition he needs.
See, that's one I don't know that I think I can answer. Because yes, Kerry Washington, like, they all do their part so damn well. Walton Goggins plays his part so well.
Samuel Jackson.
Samuel Jackson kills it. I mean, literally everybody in that movie. My girlfriend will often ask me, like, what is a movie that's perfectly cast? Like, you can't, if you were to change one of the characters, the movie, like, with a different actor, the movie wouldn't be the same. Like, it almost wouldn't even stand the same that it currently does. And Django, for me, has always been one of those. If you replace Schultz with somebody else, I don't think it would have been as good. If you would have replaced Candy with someone else besides Leo, don't think it would have been as good. If Will Smith would have gotten the role of Django like originally planned, I think it would have been. I don't even think I ever would have watched it.
I was about to reference that. So you read my mind.
Yeah, like, it's that. I think that might have been, because of that reason. That might have been. That might be why I could say Django is my favorite character, because, God, if Will Smith would have played Django, holy shit. I don't think that movie would have been half as good as it is. Jamie Foxx really pulled it together on that one and fucking delivered. Not saying, like, Jamie Foxx is a bad actor or anything, but I think he's more typically known for, like, comedies and kind of more cheesy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he started out his career in comedy.
Yeah, I think we can all agree this is Jamie Foxx's best role.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't think of another thing he's been in that was as good as this.
The only one that I would say comes close is Ray, where he plays Ray Charles.
Yeah, damn, that's a good one. That actually might be it.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Well, and I'm so embarrassed to even say that I'm a movie fan. There's so many movies that I have on DVD or Blu-ray that I still haven't even watched, and Ray is one of them.
Same. I mean, it happens. Ray's a good movie, but that is something that's so typical. There's so many movies. You're never gonna be
Oh
able
my
to
god.
watch all of them. As much of a
Yeah.
you can be the biggest movie fan in the world and still not have seen all the movies that somebody said.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You guys know Amazing Spider-Man 2. The role was Electro. You guys sleeping on that
one? His scuffed performance that he absolutely snubbed at the Academy Awards for. Yeah, I remember that. So we talked about scenes. We talked about characters. I think that. Oh, this just kind of like popped into my head, so this is kind of like not a very good segue, but I just thought this was really funny that Samuel L. Jackson. Well, I guess I didn't get a chance to really talk about some of my favorite characters, but character that I find really interesting is Samuel L. Jackson's character Steven, who we get introduced to pretty late in the movie, but Samuel L. Jackson plays him in such a fantastic way that he comes off as almost more despicable and more easy to hate than probably Calvin Candy. Because it's one thing to be this guy who's a plantation owner, who does all these evil things. It's another thing to be someone who is a victim of those things and try to turn other people into victims.
Yeah.
And be as evil and conniving as Steven is in the movie. But one of the things I was going to reference is Samuel L. Jackson, is famous for multiple things, but one of the things he's famous for is playing Mace Windu in the Star Wars prequels. And in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Samuel L. Jackson's character kills a bounty hunter named Django. And in this movie, he gets killed by a bounty hunter named Django.
Django. That's pretty cool. That one never even popped into my head.
Yeah, I saw that as I was reading up on the movie, and I just thought that was really cool. But yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, I was gonna say while you were talking about Samuel Jackson that it's almost like he's the true villain of the movie.
Yeah.
Because without him, you wouldn't have. They wouldn't have gotten caught by Calvin Candy.
Yeah.
And also, he's the final death in the movie.
Yep.
They save his, and I think he's self-aware by the end of the movie. He tries to be as terrible as the white people, almost on purpose. But he also, you can tell, got out of field work by faking an injury, because at the end of the movie he drops his cane. That's the way I've always taken it.
That's a really good
he drops his cane and he walks forward and he's like, I count 6 shots. He's like, yeah, I've been fine this whole time. I just got out of those fields because I hated it.
Yeah.
And it almost in a way he's like, you ruined me blending in here.
Mm-hmm. Ruined the illusion.
Yeah. Because he only drops the cane when all the white people are gone.
Yeah, that's true.
He all of them had just died, and he's like, all right. He, I'm just thinking about it now, but it's almost like he's walking up to Django saying, I count 6 shots and everything. Almost like he's kind of in the same predicament that they were put in earlier in the movie, where it's it's either I die or I have to go to a new plantation. And I'm not going to be treated as well as I am here.
Yeah.
And so he walks towards Django almost as if to say, death is better than the alternative, which is, again, how I perceive Kerry Washington and Django. That's where they were whenever Billy Crash had the pistol up to her head.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally tracks. love that final scene where he says he's only got 6 shots, and then he's like, I got 2 guns.
I got 2 guns. Yeah, that one always puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, Django's whole ending monologue is pretty good. I honestly, I think it's like the most amount of time I was gonna say I think it's the most amount of time he speaks in the movie, but Django speaks pretty much throughout the entirety of the movie. But I think it's the most impactful speech he has.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found that very fascinating. He's the one that takes in all these different things he's heard or learned throughout the movie. You know, he's like, I'm the 1 in 10,000. You know, he tells Steven, he's like, you know, Steven, you're how many people you've seen come and go through here, 76 years, you know, and the build up to his zinger is, you know, how many people have you seen? 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 9,999. I am that 1 in 10,000. And that was so badass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so real quick, there was a goof that I wanted to mention. Again, I'm terrible at segues, so I just bring it up whenever I think of it. Is
you're good.
That scene with Quentin Tarantino? He's playing one of the guys that are bringing slaves in for the mining company. So dynamite is used in that scene, and it's used again back at Candyland. But what I found really funny is that the movie takes place in 1858. Dynamite was not invented until 1867.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I never knew that one.
I just saw that and I was like, that's so hilarious. But like, they had to have dynamite in the movie, you know? Like, for the sake of the plot, they had to have it. It's just that it doesn't make sense in terms of like chronological events with like actual history. But I always think to myself, like, Tarantino movies have never been about, you know, being true to history. It's always about like whatever's convenient for the plot, whatever makes sense for the plot. I shouldn't say convenient for the plot, but it makes sense.
I don't know if you know this or not. But Eli Roth actually didn't kill Hitler.
Yeah. I was going to reference Inglourious Bastards, obviously not being the movie you write a report on for World War II class.
Yeah.
Also, Charles Manson's gang did kill that lady.
Yes. Yeah, I got that part.
Well, and that's all of Tarantino's movies, is there...
You're just like, there's a goof here. And I'm just like, well, there's a few goofs, if that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
True. So true.
I don't know if you know this, but vampires don't go down to Mexico.
That's also true. Yeah. There's no such thing as a true romance either.
Or a natural born killer.
Yeah. Love it.
I talk about another Tarantino movie that you love. I love True Romance. I think that one's so good.
It's really my fave. I love that movie. I own it on so many different versions. I have the VHS. I have a DVD. I own it on Amazon, like digital.
Oh man,
it's a great movie. I love that you introduced me to that, Colin. That was really a fun movie. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
You know what sucks? My girlfriend hates that movie.
Oh no!
Oh, dude, she thought it was
dude fantasy.
I showed it to her and she's like, "That was awful. That sucked." And I was like, "That's the best. That's one of the best movies ever. It's so fun."
That's a dude who doesn't know how to write a script yet. Who just fantasized like his perfect fucking weekend.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
a prostitute meets you in a kung fu movie, like all night triathlon, whatever. You accidentally steal a bunch of cocaine.
You said
like involved with the mafia as well.
You said that's a man that doesn't know how to write a script yet. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think them getting married in like a day, I thought that was like a little weird. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, "What the hell?"
I love it.
But I mean, that scene with Christopher Walken that's
chilling.
Like in that scene alone, like you learn that's when I think when Quentin Tarantino was like early on getting like that scene alone showed like, oh, this is gonna be big. Like his career, like that. Just that scene was like, all right, this whoever wrote this.
Yeah.
Sorry, you
Never
were
see him
breaking up
again.
there for a second.
I was just saying, like, that's a great scene. It's awesome. You don't see that character again in the rest of the movie.
Let's kind of.
It's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a really great scene. I love this movie. There's a lot of shit that doesn't make sense, and I don't know why it's there.
That's almost kind of the beauty of it, though.
Yeah.
I get it. That's why it's like one of those things where he sold it to Tony Scott, and it's really Tony Scott that's making that scene awesome and Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
But obviously Quentin's writing is there. But it's not until like his later movies that like it's not until like Jackie Brown that I'm just like, oh, Quentin, you know how to fucking write.
Back to Jackie Brown.
I really think you guys are sleeping on it. It's literally like a stage.
I'll tell you what. I'll give it another try. I'll give it another try.
Pretty please, because
I need to give it another try. That's one that I've tried to get back, or like I haven't tried to, but I've told myself several times like I need to get back to that one and watch it. If I'm gonna say that I'm this huge Quentin Tarantino fan, I need to have seen Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
So my whole thing on my last thing about Jackie Brown. There's so much shit in his movies nowadays. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is like, almost 3 hours. The fucking Pulp Fiction's all these different stories. Inglourious Basterds got all this shit. Hateful Eight's like 4 hours long. Jackie Brown is just like a nice, smooth, chill movie where like very little happens, but it's more about just what these characters are like day-to-day life is. Yeah. And like kind of, there's some heists and hijinks. But I think it's more his like most beautiful, well-written thing.
Such an interesting take. It makes me want to rewatch the movie.
Please.
So we talked about, our favorite scenes, our favorite characters, favorite lines, all this stuff. But, this is Action Jack-0ffs. What is the best action sequence in the movie? And I'll start with Colin.
I don't think that's even a question.
Is it the let me guess, is it the shootout right after Calvin Candy gets killed?
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of has to be, right?
It's probably the most bombastic action sequence we've got in the movie, because there's not really been so many action sequences per se. It's not your traditional action movie.
I would say, yeah, that's it's between that, and I think that's going to win every time. But it's between that, maybe at the end, whenever there's kind of the montage of him killing the brothers or the cousins or whatever the hell they are, the hillbilly boys.
Yeah.
It's between those two. And I'd say maybe the other montage in the middle of the movie, but I wouldn't even say that because it's not even really him. Him and Schultz kill that one gang, but then other than that, it's kind of just Django training.
Yeah.
And then the only other like shootout or like gunfight scene there is in the movie is, I guess, well, you could say the beginning, or you could say Lil Jon and Ellis.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the caveat whenever you're doing a Western action movie, is all the action is over in like 5 seconds, because it all just amounts, it's tantamount to a gunshot.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just boom, 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 and then the scene's over. That's why I think that's why you're right. It does always kind of come down to the scene immediately following Calvin's death, because that's the longest sequence where it's just gunshots, going crazy. Everybody's, going nuts. Lincoln said squibs are just flying everywhere. I mean, and by the way, this is probably top contender for best squibs I've ever seen in an action movie.
I don't know that I've ever heard that term. What is a squib?
A squib is whenever someone gets shot, and it's the resulting basically explosion of blood that comes out of them.
Gotcha.
So you call it a squib because it's kind of supposed to be like the noise it makes when it hits somebody. It's just squib, and then there's like the blood. And this being a Tarantino movie, that there's going to be a ton of blood. So that's why I think this is probably it's better. It's up there with Total Recall. It might be better than Total Recall. Total Recall had some great squibs.
Yeah.
But yeah, these squibs are insane. Kill Bill, I'll just say it. Kill Bill probably has not really any
silliest squibs.
It has the silliest squibs because it's more of like, it's not even really squibs because they don't use guns. You know what I mean? But it's
just like when you're like taking limbs and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess that's not technically a squib, but there's like different, whatever that effect would be called if it's not.
It's a variation.
Oh, what's he got?
Still squib.
What's Colin got there?
Huh?
What's that little snack you got there?
I have a box of Gushers under my desk.
Solid.
I'm getting the munchies. I'm sorry.
You're good, dude. I'm about to get the munchies here in a second.
That's so funny.
So yeah, best actress in the movie. I think it is what it is. I personally really like the explosion. I guess not really an action sequence, but I really love the explosion where Dr. Schultz blows up all of the KKK members. That's a really good scene. I love that. That's basically just like the climax to that scene is them getting blown up, and I really love that. I really love when he's putting the dynamite into the tooth. He's actually like he's whistling the Django theme, so I thought that was a really nice touch. But yeah,
I always love that one.
I think that just about covers everything. If you guys want to give your final thoughts, I'll start with you, Lincoln.
Still a great film. It's not a Jackie Brown by any means, but it's up there. Love it a lot. I just like it. It's a good movie.
Recommend.
I like Big Daddy. Daddy.
Now I'll ask this question because I'm gonna start asking this question. If somebody's never seen a movie before, would you recommend this being the first movie they see?
Might be a lot.
Might be a little too much for them.
It might be a little too bombastic.
Okay, Colin, I'll ask you final thoughts, and would you recommend this movie to somebody that's never seen a movie before?
Depends on how racist they are, or if they're even white. I get very scared telling people this is my favorite movie because of what I think they're gonna think about me.
Right.
Because you're the most qualified people to talk about this film.
Well, it's it is my favorite movie, but I've gotten a certain reaction from many people, like whenever I tell them Django Unchained is my favorite movie, they're like, ooh, because I'm white.
Colin's a racist.
Yeah, they're like, oh, who is this guy? And it's like, no, that's not what this is about.
You got one of these guys.
That's pretty funny.
Now, if you do want me to answer the question as far as what is the movie I would recommend,
please.
I would probably say first movie to ever watch in your entire life.
You've never seen,
and they're not a child.
They're a 25-year-old man or woman, and they've never seen a movie before. Gone their whole life without seeing a movie.
I'd probably have to go with my second favorite movie, The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
Just because I love it so much.
Okay.
Just because I first of all, I love that movie. I have more copies and probably more memorabilia from Big Lebowski than I do Django.
Okay.
So it's like neck and neck with Django in my tops.
I'll ask this question. We got a question from chat. Says, are you okay with this being one of Tarantino's 10 total films? Do you feel like it's unique enough? Does this movie stand out enough compared to
1,000%?
1000%? Lincoln, what do you think?
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's unique enough. It's unique enough in terms of the fact that it's not just your average Western movie. It's pretty unique in that it's got no, Marv, you're more than just chat. You are the chat. When I say chat, I'm talking about you specifically.
Wait, are we live?
Oh yeah, we've been live the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what's up?
I thought we were recording this to then post later. Well, hi, chat.
It's recording at the same time, yeah.
I don't know how many people are watching. Is this on YouTube?
It's streaming on Twitch, but it's going to go up on YouTube.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
We're big timers now.
But
well, dang. Hi, chat.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are watching right now. I haven't been looking at the box. I'm pretty sure it's just Marv watching, but nobody ever really watches this stuff anyway.
Always. Except for whenever he's supposed to show up.
Yeah. So yeah. What was I gonna say? I had one more thing about Django. I was gonna say. It'll probably kick me in the ass later when I remember it. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this episode of Action Jack-0ffs, episode 29. So we've got a big 30 coming up. Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode of Action Jack-0ffs. I want to extend a wholehearted thank you to our guest, Colin. Thank you for coming on to the show today.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Had a lot of fun.
Love you, boys.
Love you too. Hope you had as much fun as we did.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So yeah, don't forget, this episode is gonna go up next day on YouTube. So just stay tuned for that. And then off camera, we will come up with whatever our next movie is because I don't have an idea what it's gonna be yet. Bye.
Hell yeah, brother.
Bye.